All right, gang, we're doing another part of 21 most influential fragrances. So this is the second part I'm doing today. If you didn't catch part one, please do catch that before you watch this. Or after you watch this, go back and watch that. I'll be doing 3 of these, and I'll make a playlist of all 3 so you can go watch them back to back if you want to ever come back to these videos. But these are the most influential fragrances to me, according to my research, according to what I see online with people commenting and things like that, and a little bit of my own feedback into this. So if you like history and things like that, these are the kind of videos that I'm trying to do more and more of on the channel. This is kind of like in a deep dive video format, but not so deep dive. So not like long form like I do. So as I said, there's a part 1 of this. This is part 2. There will be a part 3, and then you'll find it in a playlist. You can go watch them back to back. And that way it'll be a little bit more of a deep dive format. So let me know before I get started, what are your favorite, most influential fragrances? I guess they don't even have to be your favorite, I should say. Just any fragrance that you consider like some of the most influential. Do add a comment below, and I'd like to find out. And then we can all, like everybody can see what your thoughts are, and we can start a conversation on what you think are some of the most influential fragrances. So I've got these fragrances broken down into groups, and we're starting off with fragrances from 1910s to the 1960s. And we've got mostly, there's no feminine, no, there are feminine fragrances here. This is every fragrances, I think, but I've kind of made these videos a bit more masculine leaning so that it's because my channel tends to attract more men than women. So that's why some of the fragrances, or most of the fragrances, are men. But there's a few unisex and, of course, a few feminine leaning fragrances as well. So let's go back all the way back in time to around early 1900s for this Acqua di Parma Colonia. So this is basically a fragrance that defined the modern cologne masculinity, you know? It's citrusy, it's elegant, and it's kind of like a lifestyle fragrance with these kind of barbershop-y, aromatic cologne qualities, but with an overdose of citruses and something that you would put on. It's got a very Italian vibe to it, for somebody to put on their clothes and spritz away this very fresh eau de cologne. And again, it reminds me a little bit of barbershop-y touches because it's got these kind of aromatic barbershop-y notes in it, but it's so super fresh and invigorating, and it's kind of easy breezy going, but definitely something that's very modern, masculine cologne style. If you guys don't know this, it's been going on. It's very influential. They've been making flankers of this. Most recently, they've been making quite a bit of flankers of this fragrance. But it's been around since the early 1900s, and definitely something you should look into as one of the most influential fragrances in the history of fragrances overall. And I think it's very important for us to check out fragrances like that. And even though I feel like it's quite masculine, I think a woman can totally pull it off. It's just kind of, for me, it leans masculine. But again, there's no rules. Wear what you want when you want. Like this next fragrance, I think is very influential. My dad wore this one. He didn't wear the Acqua di Parma Colonia, but he wore this one, and I remember it as a child in the 70s. This is Homme de Caron by Caron, the House of Caron. This is a fragrance that kind of established the soft masculinity because it is lavender. It's a fougere style, not necessarily like totally barbershop, but I feel like it's a fougere style because it does have a very prominent lavender note here. It's acting like a barbershop, but because it has the ambery vanillic notes in the base, it's giving you a different effect of the fougere style. I classify it somewhere between a regular fougere or an amber fougere because the vanilla and whatever notes they have in the base does act ambery. So it creates a kind of an amber fougere styling to it. But the lavender is so prominent in this. It's also such a recognizable smell, super prominent with the lavender, and then also really cozy with the vanilla in here. In fact, the overall experience of this fragrance is super comforting, like really, really comforting, soothing, relaxing. It's a great bed scent because you can get this. Well, you used to be able to get it for really inexpensive. I do see that it's come back at the discounters a little bit now. The prices have gone down. So it's a really easy fragrance to wear. But this is the kind of fragrance that kind of started the, the establishment of something a bit more softer, a bit more cozier for a men's fragrance, It's so good, so good. Every time I smell this, it reminds me of my dad. I don't know why it does that, but I remember his bottle. I remember it as a young kid smelling it. This just has that smell, It's so cool. Very memorable. Lots of scent memories with this. And totally an influential offering from the world of perfumery. Let me know your thoughts on Pour Homme de Caron. It's a men's targeted release, but a lot of ladies wear that one. I think it's very unisex. Up next, going to a feminine targeted release, we're going to the house of Estée Lauder. This is Youth Dew. You guys know this one? So this is a fragrance that reshaped the idea of fragrance retail. It turned perfume into a daily self-purchase product, All the ladies were running to the stores and buying this fragrance. And I think it has inspired other fragrances. I think most importantly, when I smell Opium side by side to Estée Lauder Youth Dew, which I believe Opium is in the first video, part 1 of this series, there are, it feel like they're inspired from one another. Although Opium, I think, is more overdosed with spices. This to me feels a bit more resins and something more resinous with a little less spices. But I feel like it's influential enough that it's inspiring a lot of fragrances after it came. But this is a fragrance that, became a daily usage for the ladies. And ladies fell in love with this super potent, intense, ambery, warm, spicy experience. And to me, I never mentioned this in a video. The name doesn't make sense to me with this particular smell, this DNA. Youth Dew, and the fact that I don't know, subconsciously, I think Youth Dew should be something a bit more minimalistic, a bit more cleaner. I don't find this fragrance to be clean whatsoever. It's super spicy, super resinous. In fact, it's a bit fizzy and Coca-Cola-esque to me, but it's a very influential fragrance, I think. I think there might be a male equivalent of this one from the worlds of Aramis. Maybe there wasn't one of this, but I can see that since Estée Lauder made male equivalent of their Estée Lauder fragrances in Aramis line, I could see something like that coming from this as well. But in the end, I think when this fragrance came out, it inspired a lot of other fragrances. It totally influenced a lot of other fragrances. Let me know your thoughts on this fragrance, Youth Dew. Add a comment below. Have you worn it? Have you known someone that wore it? Up next, going to the house of Guerlain. This is Vetiver. I got a little bit left here, a little bit. Need to get another bottle of this. But this is what made Vetiver elegant, This fragrance from Guerlain. I think prior to this, there was Carvan's Vetiver, but this is what made it elegant, very wearable, and very masculine. This is the first, I guess, very influential take on a Vetiver men's fragrance. I think Carvan's Vetiver did a little bit of that, but up until this launched, I think Vetiver was still pretty unknown. And then it's been a long-standing fragrance. I think we're looking at the 1950s here with the launch of this. I think it was 1959 for when it launched. But I wore this for the first time in the 90s, and I still love the way it smells. Although I should be honest and say I've been bored of Vetiver fragrances, but I think when I put my nose to this, it's quite awesome. And the fact that Guerlain has made multiple flankers of this. I think a lot of Vetiver fragrances came after this, a lot. So many. Just look at databases of Vetiver fragrances. I think all of them are pretty much paying tribute to Guerlain's Vetiver. In fact, Guerlain even launched a Parfum edition 2 years ago, which means there's a market for it and people want it. But again, this is a super elegant, very masculine, very classy and wearable Vetiver fragrance. Let me know if you've worn that. Add a comment below. Then we're going to the same house, but we're going to something a little bit more modern, a bit more warmer. This is Habit Rouge. This is the Eau de Parfum edition, but this is Habit Rouge, originally launched in the 60s, probably around 6-7 years after Guerlain Vetiver. But this is the first true modern kind of amber oriental style fragrance for the guys. And this is where sweetness enters the masculinity side of fragrances. And even though I think we had a little bit of sweetness here with the Caron Paranum de Caron, I think this is kind of like Guerlain emulating their success with Shalimar for the guys. And once again, this is also something that's been long-standing from Guerlain. Even though it's a classic, some people might think it's a bit tired, but so happy that it's still selling, and also they're creating multiple flankers. Like in the latter part of the 2010s, I remember Guerlain did Dress Code. They came out with a couple of different iterations of that. And then, of course, the Rouge Privé that came out 3-4 years ago. Super awesome take on the Habit Rouge line with an overdose of animalic leather. And then 2 years ago, they launched the Parfum. Last year, they launched the Spirit Parfum. I think it's an awesome DNA, one that I really, really love. In fact, I've grown to enjoy it even more over the years, throughout the years, thanks to Dress Code that came out in the latter part of the 2010s. But super influential. And I think even though, like I said, Guerlain was emulating the success of Shalimar for the launch of Habit Rouge for the guys, I think it's its own thing right now. It's been influential with other fragrances that came down the line. But I really love it. It's a great fragrance. I love the citrusy touches, the warm vanillic touches, slight leathery touches as well. And the Parfum, over the top amazing. I absolutely love the Parfum. Let me know your thoughts on the Parfum of Habit Rouge. All right, let's go into the 70s through the 80s. We've got several fragrances here to talk to you about. One of my favorite fougere fragrances from the 70s, which actually led to another favorite that we have here. But I'm talking about Azzaro's Pour Homme. This is a powerhouse fougere and perfected barbershop dominance, basically. What I like about this one, in comparison to something like Drakkar Noir, which is here as well, this had that anise note in it, which to me, anise is somewhat boozy, but soft, spicy. And it's a very distinct flavor, because I really love the flavor myself. And of course, the smell is captured here with that whole overall barbershop-y experience, the fougere style fragrance. But to me, I think this is what started the dominance of the barbershop fragrances in the 80s. And of course, also, I should say maybe Paco Rabanne's Pour Homme, but that came several years prior, as this came out in 1978. But it's such an awesome release, super masculine, very rugged and rough, total green fougere, barbershop-y aromatic fragrances, and that really awesome anise note that's in here that I really love, that takes it into a different direction compared to other fougere barbershop fragrances from the same era. But really awesome. I think if this didn't come out, I don't think we would have fragrances like Drakkar Noir. Although Drakkar Noir is a flanker of Drakkar, which launched maybe 10 years prior. But I think the fact that this came out and several other fragrances like this came out, we have fragrances like Drakkar Noir. Let me know what your thoughts are on Azzaro Pour Homme. Let's talk about another fragrance that came out in the same year, but this time going to the green, leathery, sheeper direction. This is Ralph Lauren's Polo. Super influential fragrance, and I think it's still around, Many fragrances have been inspired by this, influenced by this, and then also they keep cranking out flankers of the Polo series to this day. It is very green, super, super green, almost like a pine forest green, because it does have those pine kind of notes in it. It's got a very aristocratic kind of masculinity about it. And then this is also kind of like around the same time that a lot of green fragrances were popular. Fragrances like Devon from Aramis. You had fragrances like Magie Noire from Lancôme. So this is kind of like categorized in a similar style, because it's a sheeper style, This eventually starts out with that kind of almost Christmas tree-like greenness with the piney aromatic notes, and then it leads to become a leather, It becomes very leathery and animalic. This is a fragrance that is where lifestyle fragrance, it created a culture, basically. But to me, the smell is so awesome. My only negativity about this current version of Polo is the leather smells quite synthetic when it's drying down. but it's that initial blast on this version that smells so, so awesome. Super green, like supercharged green aromatics and piney kind of woods that are what you start with. Super awesome fragrance. It's one of the best, I think. This is also another fragrance my dad wore, and I really, really appreciate for him to turn me on to such an awesome release, because my dad had a great fragrance taste, and I credit him quite a bit for introducing me to the fragrances he wore and igniting my passion for, you know, fragrances, and to do this as a hobby. Now let's talk about Chanel's Antaeus. This is it right here. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. This is Chanel's equivalent to YSL's Kouros. They don't smell alike, but to me they're kind of, they launched around the same time. This is animalic, masculine fragrance that's taken seriously, you know? Super, super animalic. This current formulation though, I think the Polo is pretty bad when it's drying down. This start is even kind of been butchered up quite a bit. But I think it's because the usage of castoreum in the fragrance for the leather, I don't think it's being done now. And everything just smells a bit synthetic and animalic, unfortunately. But to me, it's also very iconic. Just like the Kouros white bottle, this is the opposite in a different shape and look. In the black bottle, I find them to be super iconic bottles. The next one also, but again, the smell, super animalic, very, very masculine. And there were a lot of fragrances like this back in the early 80s and into the, you know, late 80s. Very animalic, powerful, leathery kind of animalic masculine offerings. But I don't know, do the young guys like these fragrances anymore? If you're young, let me know your thoughts on Antaeus. What are your thoughts on the new formulation or the most recent formulation of that fragrance? Do add a comment below. We're gonna go to my favorite 80s fragrance now. It's Drakkar Noir. Again, I give Azzaro pour Homme credit to igniting the interest and the countless, you know, launches of Fougère fragrances. But again, this is a flanker of the original Drakkar from 1972, I believe, because this launched in 1982. And to this day, I still think it's one of the best offerings. I actually went through 4 bottles of this in the 80s. I did get tired of it after the 4th bottle. I wore a lot of fragrance then too, not only now. And back then the fragrances were even more robust and intense. But this is super cool, invigorating, but powerful aromatics and woods and green kind of herbs. And there's a very extreme cooling sensation about the fragrance. And this became mass market. Everybody was wearing this Fougère. Total domination of men's fragrance. I mean, it's such an iconic bottle too. Total cultural saturation with this one. But I mean, they've made countless flankers of it, and you know, they had the original Drakkar, then they had Drakkar Noir, various flankers down the line. I think the true icon and influential fragrance from the line is Drakkar Noir. It comes in that super sexy matte finish bottle, and again, when you look at it and you see it, it's like it brings back memories of when it dominated the market. It's so good. Really, really great. The new version, Drakkar Intense, which is really a true flanker of the original Drakkar, does smell a lot like Drakkar Noir, and also much more potent if you want to try that. And these fragrances are also super cheap. You can find some great deals on them. Let's move on to a few ladies' fragrances next. We've got Paloma Picasso right here by Paloma Picasso. This is the EDP Eau de Parfum version. This is the bold, intellectual power, femininity fragrance. It's a chypre. It became the chypre authority in the 80s. Like, my mom wore this. I knew a lot of mom's friends that were wearing fragrances like this. It was also like the equivalent of how powerful the men's fragrances were in the 80s, because this is also something from like the early 80s, early to mid 80s. And everything was super loud, intense, overwhelming, like just like the 80s was, like excess to the max. For me, you can totally smell the chypre qualities. There's flowers in here, earthy notes, like mossy notes, maybe even some leathery notes, but very feminine fragrance that's been neutered for sure. But when you smell it, really focus on it, you could see what an awesome fragrance it once was, you know? Super loud. Also, these fragrances from the 80s, 70s, 80s lasted for days. You know, they were so super potent. And if you guys don't know who Paloma Picasso is, she is the daughter of Picasso, the artist. And she had a few fragrances. Minotaur is the guy's fragrance she launched, which right now, to this day, has been neutered so badly, like it's watered down. At least with the feminine fragrance here, which I think is more important than the guy's fragrance Minotaur. At least it's pretty decent for us to kind of check out and experience and see its influence down the line with other fragrances. Let me know if you've gotten your nose on Paloma Picasso's Paloma Picasso. Let's move on to a fragrance from the house of Dior. This is Poison. So Poison, yes, yeah, very much. So I'm an 80s guy. I grew up in the 80s. I was in my teens in the 80s. And I was very curious when it came to fragrances, and not only with the dad, uncles, relatives, male relatives fragrances, but also was very curious with the moms and mom's friends and relatives feminine fragrances. And to me, Poison was one of those fragrances that really stood out. Like a lot of relatives and friends of my mom wore Poison, and they also had their shoulder pads. So it's like, it was almost like kind of going hand in hand. The ladies had to have their shoulder pads to wear this like super loud and dark and fruity and floral, very excessive and powerful fragrance that stood out, like really left an impression big time. I recently picked up this bottle. It's a new bottle. It's not vintage. I can kind of see what this fragrance was before. And I remember enjoying smelling this off of the ladies. I think it's definitely neutered now, but it led to a lot of awesome offerings that came after this. In fact, the Poison series has been around for so long. All the fragrances have changed. Of course, there was also Midnight Poison, which I'm looking to get a bottle if I can find a vintage. There was the one with the almonds. So many different Poison flankers. But I think this is what started this series with a bang. Like, it was super, super loud, super dark, very, very fruity with the plums. I think it's plums in here. And then, of course, white flowers. Yeah, it's that kind of a fragrance. Dior's Poison. Let me know what your thoughts are. All right, now we've gone to the 1990s. We've got 3 fragrances from the 1990s. This is starting off with Féminité du Bois. So I'm featuring this here because originally it launched under Shiseido. Then it was moved over to Serge Lutens, and I believe Shiseido was head by Serge Lutens himself. I don't know 100% the story, but this used to be in a Shiseido bottle. It moved over to the Serge Lutens bottle. In fact, Féminité du Bois is one of the first fragrances I bought from this house. Even though it had the word Féminité, I didn't really think twice. I thought it smelled great. It's woods, very sensual kind of woods. It's a bit artistic. It's got this fruity booziness in there, and it's quite unisex as well. This actually has inspired quite a bit of other fragrances. And what I like about it is the sandalwood that's in here. That's quite unique. It's woods, but very sandalwood forward. But you've got that fruitiness, maybe some slight white flowers as well. Like the boozy fruitiness from the plums is really, really signature against the sandalwood's creaminess in this. Really great scent, I think. Let me know your thoughts on Féminité du Bois. But this is also super influential. This is L'Eau d'Essai pour Homme from the house of Issey Miyake, launched in the 1990s. I mean, it's so influential, I think. It's been copied over and over again from so many different brands. But Jacques Cavalier is inspired and influenced by his own creation, and he took it over to Louis Vuitton, and he's been creating a lot of these Louis Vuitton fragrances that are kind of like watery and aquatic leaning. Just smell a lot of the fragrances. Not everything. A lot of them have that kind of watery, dewy effect that's so prominent in this L'Eau d'Essai. But this is clean and minimalistic, fruity, but more citrusy, juicy, fruity, zingy, spicy, watery, as I said, but a really great creation from Issey Miyake, created by Jacques Cavalier. I mean, he's got such great fragrances. Definitely, we speak about Dominique Ropion quite a bit, but I think Jacques Cavalier has done some great work and has released some very long-standing, influential fragrances like this. There's a whole video on the channel of a deep dive of Jacques Cavalier fragrances. If you are curious to check it out, head over to check it out. But let's move on to the house of Comme des Garçons. This is 2. Yeah, this is one of those weird perfumes by Comme des Garçons that's kind of very addicting. It's sort of abstract with ink, and it's kind of an anti-perfume, but it has aldehydes, it has the ink, it smells a bit metallic and silver, and you put your nose on it, you're not sure what to think about it the first time, and then you get addicted to it and you want to keep smelling it more and more. And I think this is the kind of fragrance that Comme des Garçons did quite a bit of, and some other brands were copying it, inspired and influenced by. But Comme des Garçons kept doing it over and over and over again. They just kept the weird alive. And to this day, they still launch some weird fragrances. But I think they have become a bit more mainstream now. But this is definitely one of the best from the house. I think this is also created by Mark Buxton, if I'm not wrong. What do you guys think about this? It's a really great scent. I think Comme des Garçons has some really awesome scents that are definitely worth checking out. And what I like about it is that aldehydic touch, the metallic touch, the cold touch with the ink. Very, very unique scent. That's Comme des Garçons 2. Let me know what your thoughts are on that one. All right, then we're going to the house of Chanel as we're heading into the 2000s and to the 2010s. This is Chanel's Coco Mademoiselle. I think personally this is influenced and inspired by Angel by Mugler. This is Chanel's take on it because it does focus on patchouli, and the patchouli stands out. It's very polished and modern and feminine. It's chic and very, very mainstream. This is a fragrance I used to smell on a lot of ladies. Not as much as I smelled Angel, but this also became quite like prominent. Like I would smell it on a lot of ladies, and it also would leave that trail. Like you could smell them walking by. And at first I would think it's Angel, but then it would be different. There's something more earthy about this in comparison to the Angel. Like it's almost like earth, the smell, the way it kind of blends with the chemistry of people. But I think this is also another one of those very influential fragrances that actually I think eventually led to the inspiration for La Vie est Belle from the house of Lancôme, which became a bit fruitier because there's fruitiness here, but not quite fruity. And it's also a bit sharper because the La Vie est Belle is also very creamy smooth, but I feel like it's inspired and influenced a lot of different fragrances. What are your thoughts on Coco Mademoiselle from Chanel? Are you a fan? Add a comment below. We've got Narciso Rodriguez For Her next. This is such a long-standing collection of fragrances from this house. They killed the men's original launch, the original For Him, created by Francis Kirkjam, but this is still around. I mean, it sells, ladies love it, and it's polished modern femininity. Once again, it's patchouli, and it becomes chic and mainstream. And it's not super loud, it's patchouli, so it has that lingering power. It heats up with your body, it starts projecting. It's super sexy and musky. Really great, clean, modern feminine fragrance that not super loud, but great lingering power, super chic and feminine to wear. What are your thoughts on Narciso Rodriguez For Her? I think my bottle is a bit turned, sadly. I think this bottle I bought used from someone. So it's a pretty vintage bottle, but I think it's a bit turned, sadly. But it's a great offering. And they continue doing, flankers to that series. And like I said, the men's has been discontinued, but the ladies keeps going on and on and on. Let's move on to the house of by Kilian next with Love Don't Be Shy. Yep, this is a very influential. I mean, so many brands were inspired by this one. So many. And it was, I think, Kilian that did it first. In fact, it's one of my first fragrance purchases from Kilian after Straight to Heaven and Rose Oud. I love this fragrance. It smells great. It's a gourmand sweetness, but entering the luxury and pop culture. It eventually developed to a lot of celebrities wanting to wear this one. Rihanna, it was supposedly her favorite fragrance. And once they published that article back in like 2019 or whenever it was, they completely ran out of the fragrance. What I love about this fragrance, it smells like candy, and it's the kind of candy I grew up with. Orange blossom, sweetness, like vanillic, marshmallowy, custardy sweetness against the orange blossom, which is a delicacy in the Middle East and the Mediterranean. So they created a fragrance out of it, and it became a phenomenon. So this is Love Don't Be Shy from the house of Kilian. It has been reformulated, I'll say that about it. But next, going to the house of Nasomatto, it's Black Afgano. So this is one of those shock value, niche, dark leaning fragrances that was so super hyped for a while. It's oudi. It's the idea of hashish or cannabis with coffee. I think when this launched, it was so truly original. Really, really original, that nothing was out there like this. Now when I put my nose to Black Afgano, it smells like 100 other fragrances that I've smelled before, or since, I should say. But when I smell this fragrance, I was like, wow, that is so cool. But my story I've mentioned so many times. When I went into Barney's to buy a bottle of Black Afgano, as I was checking out, there were some folks spraying Portrait of a Lady, and the smell started coming to the cashier where I was checking out. And I was like, when I smelled Portrait of a Lady, I was almost ready to dump Black Afgano and buy a bottle of Portrait of a Lady. But I decided, since this was so truly unique, I'd buy the bottle. So 2 weeks later, I went back and bought a bottle of Portrait of a Lady. But it's that one of those kind of fragrances that I'm a bit tired of now. I'm not tired of Portrait of a Lady, but I'm a little bit tired of this one. But still, dark, kind of oudi. The theme or the idea of this fragrance is a bit daring because it has the cannabis hashish notes in it, because at the time it hadn't been done before. And so it caught on, and everybody wanted their bottle of Black Afgano. In fact, when I was buying my bottle, the sales associate said, we're almost out of it. People come in and buy 3-4 bottles at a time. Either way, Black Afgano from the house of Nasomatto. Let me know if you're a fan of that. Up next, going to the house of Juliette Has a Gun. Not a perfume. Yeah, this fragrance is so minimalistic. It's such a skin scent that's very, very minimalistic. It became an obsession, and everybody wanted these minimalistic fragrances, so brands started creating them. I mean, this came much after something like Eccentric Molecules Molecule 1, but I feel like Molecule 1 and Eccentric Molecules is a bit more of a cult brand. This is more mass market niche, I think. Juliette Has a Gun is more mass market niche. And so it put minimalistic fragrances more on the map. It normalized it, basically. But it's interesting also, sometimes when I smell this fragrance, I can hardly smell anything. I don't know if it's because I'm smelling it right after Black Afgano, but I could smell it pretty prominently today. That's very, very strange. But otherwise, I rarely smell anything. And what I smelled is quite sexy, I think. Clean, very, very clean, very, very minimalistic. It's basically a musk. And the note that they use in here is Cetalox, which is like a relative or a cousin of Ambroxan. So that's not a perfume from the house of Juliette Has a Gun. And then Maison Margiela's By the Fireplace. Yeah, this has been so influential. I mean, up until this fragrance, I don't think I ever smelled a fragrance that featured chestnuts. Post By the Fireplace, there have been so many chestnut-focused fragrances. It's a very mood-focused kind of a fragrance that went totally mainstream. In fact, I used to smell people wearing this, walking on the street. As I'm walking behind them, excuse me, I would smell the fragrance, and I would know it's something like By the Fireplace, and I would ask them, and they'd say, it's By the Fireplace. But it's definitely one of the best from the house of Maison Margiela. It put the replica collection on the map, and it influenced a lot of other brands to create similar fragrances, creating that kind of a smoky take on gourmands. And once again, I think it's smoky, but I don't think it's a true smokiness. There are other fragrances that, for me, come off much smokier than By the Fireplace, but I think what they've given us is quite awesome. So, By the Fireplace from the house of Maison Margiela. And then the 21st fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is Layton from the house of Parfums de Marly. That's the last fragrance, the last influential fragrance. It's a influencer era masculine offering very modern and crowd-pleasing niche fragrance, I think. For me, it's a decent quality, creamy, spicy, vanillic, woody fragrance. I still prefer Herod over this, but I feel like if Herod and Layton had a child, they would create a fragrance like Carlisle. So I like these 3 fragrances from the house. They smell pretty awesome. What I like about Layton also is the cardamom. There's a very cardamom presence. And the cardamom in this reminds me a little bit of the cardamom in La Nuit de la Homme. But this is much more dense in comparison to La Nuit de la Homme, which is super thin, especially after reformulations. But this has become so popular, so influential. So many people love it. And of course, a lot of brands try to emulate it, influenced by it. So that's Layton, and that's the last fragrance here for the 21 most influential fragrances. So yeah, this is part 2, guys. Let me know if you have caught part 1. If you haven't, please go catch that. And stay tuned for another part sometime in the near future. I'd like to just spread these out as much as I can so you guys don't get overwhelmed. And then once the 3 parts are done, I'll put, well, actually, I'll put the playlist together now with the first and the second. And then I'll add the third once it's done. So you'll have a playlist to watch back to back in the future. Again, this is kind of sort of in the deep dive format, but much shorter. But if you watch all 3 videos together, it'll be a much longer format video. But what are your thoughts on these fragrances? Do you consider them influential fragrances? Are there others that you consider influential that you want me to feature in part 3? Do add a comment below so I can find out. And if you want to see a part 4, let me know that as well, because I'm happy to do another part as well to increase the length of the playlist. But thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, list below. Please like this video, give a thumbs up, please. That helps with the algorithm and it gets the fragrance out more and more. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel as well, and also click the bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos. I'll be back soon with another video. Bye-bye.